Old Stormalong, the Deepwater Sailorman. Certainly, I remember old Stormalong, said the oldest skipper on Cape Cod. I was apprentice first on his ship, and later on I was second when he was bosun of the Corsair, being out of Boston. That was a ship, a wooden ship with iron men on her decks, and a ship that tain't been echoed by the hoity-toity steamboats. No, sir, and never will. Donald Mackay built that ship just because he found one sailorman who could handle her as she should be handled. But you're aiming to hear about a sailorman, and not about ships. Only t'other day the young whippersnapper was a-telling me about Stormy, saying and how he was 14 fathoms tall. I heard another tale about his height. I know, he was just 4 fathoms from the deck to the bridge of his nose. He was the first sailorman to have the letters A.B. after his name. Those were just his initials, put after his name on the ship's log, just as always it's always. Alfred Bulltop Stormalong was the name he gave his first skipper. An old man looked him over and says, A.B.S., able-bodied sailor. By your size and strength, they should measure the talents of all the other seamen. It makes me pretty mad when I see some of the hornswogglers of today with these letters after their names. They are only feeble imitators of the greatest of all deep-water sailormen. You landsmen know very little about real sailormen, that is, blue-water sailors. This chap Stomalong was not only a sailorman for all his waters, but he was a whaler, too. I mind the time he was anchored in the middle of the North Atlantic fishing right off a right whale. Look outside the school off east and Stormy, the boatswain gives the order to hiss in the mudboat. All hands forward, not a hiss. A hook would be a good and then they'd sink right back into the mud. Seemed to be hands clutching and dragging it out of our hands, since we got it clear of the bottom and almost shipped it when we seed what was wrong. Nothing short of an octopus was whopping all around the mud hook. He was a-holding the anchor with half his tentacles and the other half hanging on the seaweed on the bottom. The mate yelled, "Fast heaving!" and went back to tell the skipper. When the old man came forward and saw him for himself, he was just in time to see Stormy go overboard with a sheath knife in his teeth. He went below the surface, and there began a terrific struggle. The water was churning and splashed about as old hooker just rolled like she was a beam in the wind. All of us was sure our boatswain had been tore apart by the octopus. The struggle went on for about a quarter of an hour when Stormy's head came to the surface. Someone called to throw him a line, but before one could be brought he had grabbed the anchor chain and had come hand over hand to the deck. The struggling in the water kept on for a while, but moved away from the ship. "All right," yelled Stormy. "All hands lean on it and bring it home." After the anchor was shipped, I asked what he had done to the octopus. "I just tied his arm in knots, double carrick bends. I'll take him a month of Sundays to untie them." There was one particular thing about Stormalong that was due to his size. He was as loyal to his ship as any sailorman until he saw a bigger one. Then he'd get peevish and all sullen until he'd signed on board the bigger ship. The biggest complaint was the ships weren't built big enough for a full-sized man. Well, the ship we were on at the time was Lady of the Sea, finest and fastest of the tea packets. Even that didn't satisfy him. He wanted a bigger ship, and he'd go for farming. Once he said to us as we sat round the forebit, "When this hooker gets to port again, I'm going to put an oar over my shoulder, and I'm going to start walking away from salt water. I'm going to keep right on walking till some hair-leggard says to me, 'What's that funny stick you have on your shoulder, matey?' And right there I'm going to settle down and dig potatoes." "Yes," said third in command, skeptically. "What potatoes are you going to dig?" Regular and proper spuds, fresh ones, not like the dead potatoes you get out on this hooker, but the sailor who was tired of the sea." "Got to plant 'em first," said the third. "Then you got to hoe them and pick them bugs off 'em, spray 'em and hoe 'em some more. You got to irrigate 'em too. Best irrigator for potatoes is the sweat off your brow. So dig just as hard and fast as the sweat rolls down along your nose and drops on the plant." Much harder holystone in the deck, which, by the way, you'll begin on just as soon as you turn in the morning. Nothing can be as hard as holystone in the deck, observed Stormy. Compared to us sailoring, cuts in, farming comes under the head in the hard labor. The best part of farming, I'll admit, is that about all the hard work comes in fine weather, while with sailing, it's just another day about. For the rest of the trip, Stormalong was moody and preoccupied. He had been on the ship for over a year, a very long time for him, without seeing a bigger ship. When the ship hit Boston, Stormy signed off. He came on the deck with his duffel bag over his shoulder. "Where are you going?" I asked him. "Farmin'," says he. Then he heaves the bag over the rail and follows it to the wharf, and the crew of the Lady of the Sea just stood along the rail and gate.